Let me begin with Om Sai Ram. Om Shri 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 Sai Ram. Sai Ram, my humble pranams at the lotus feet of Swami, and my loving Sai Rams to all those present here who are my brothers and sisters. And while I have certainly had a lot of some experiences, not I can't say lots, but many of the experiences that I have had are vicarious experiences shared by my sisters, my mother with me. Unfortunately, my mother has already merged with Swami. If she had been here, you could have expected so many stories from her, which would have really thrilled us all. But may her soul rest in peace. I'm mentioning my mother because it's all started with my mother. And she instilled the kind of spiritual inclination in all her children right from the beginning, which gradually evolved and culminated in our association with Swami. I believe, and it applies to all of us, all of them who are associated with Swami, we have actually attained a milestone in our journey towards self-realization. How long this journey will remain, how many more lifetimes we have to traverse, God alone knows. But ultimately, we are all destined to merge with Swami. And we are at various stages. You've heard my sisters, Mrs. Bhatnagar and Mrs. Srivastava. I personally believe they are at a much more evolved and elevated stage. Many of us are still on the, who have come into contact with Swami, are still on the Bhakti Marg, whereas these people have transcended and probably are in the Param Bhakti Marg. Because I've noticed that they're totally immersed in Swami. They can't think of anything else except Swami day after day after day, from the time they wake up till the time they sleep. That's how my mother was, and she was perhaps the most elevated of devotees that I saw or I have known, because she was constantly, totally submerged in Swami and saw Swami in everything. I'll come to that later, but now let's start from the beginning. As you rightly mentioned, I have been associated with Swami for now almost 50 years, or exactly 50 years, because it was in 1971 or 72 when I visited my friend's house in Allahabad that I saw a big picture of Swami on the wall. And he and his sister, who were devotees, told me about him. And they presented me with a book written by the illustrious Howard Murfitt. It was called Sai Baba, the Man of Miracles. And I took that book home and I read it, and it did have a tremendous impact on me. Soon afterwards, there was an exhibition in Allahabad from where I picked up a large picture of Swami, and I presented it to my mother, who immediately installed it in her own puja, and it remained there all along while she was alive, and perhaps it is still there in my sister's house. I also procured a long playing record on Swami around 73, uh, which had a discourse of his. And my mother and I used to listen to it regularly. And that also brought us closer to Swami. It created a yearning in us to come closer to Swami. We were so drawn towards him and we wanted to have his darshan. It was in 1978, December, when I was visiting Bangalore from Chennai. Actually, I was attending a training program in Chennai as a young officer in our staff college. And I wrote to Swami's ashram asking them whether Swami would be, where Swami would be the next weekend, the coming weekend, so that I could go to that place, either Parthi or Bangalore, nearby, and have his darshans. And they wrote back to me that Swami would be in Bangalore. So I went to Bangalore, where a cousin of mine was posted, but he was away he'd gone abroad. So I went and stayed with his family. And their son, my nephew, and I, the next day we took a bus to Whitefield, the ashram, and with the hope that we would have Swami's darshan in Vrindavan. But when we reached there, we were told that Swami is not there. He is in Bombay. He has gone to Bombay. So we returned very disappointed. The same day, the cousin of mine whom I referred to was returning from his foreign tour via Bombay. And those were days when people could access the airports very easily, and there was not much of security. In fact, visitors could go almost up to the end of the tarmac. And we were all there to welcome my cousin. But as soon as the aircraft came and its gate opened, the first person to step out or emerge from the aircraft was none other than Swami himself. So that was my first darshan of Swami, and I was really overwhelmed. And then Swami, of course, he sat in the car which was sent to him. It came to the staircase, and from there he went. And as he passed us, he waved out to us. So that was enough for me. I mean, I had had my first physical glimpse of Swami, and I was very satisfied. This was in 1978, I told you. But my yearning for a face-to-face meeting with Swami, a chat with him or interview, that got triggered. But it took a very long time for that to fructify. In the 1980s, I was posted in Bombay. And there, of course, my association with the organization also took place. All those years, I was in Bombay for almost 11 years. And I used to go to Dharmakshetra regularly. I came into contact with lots of Sai devotees, including the present president of the Central Trust, Shri Pandya, Nimish Pandya, Dr. Fani Banda and his wife, and so many others. Swami used to come to Bombay every year, particularly during on the anniversary of Dharmakshetra. And I used to make it a point to go there and attend the various programs that used to take place. And each visit of mine strengthened my or accentuated my yearning to have a one-on-one meeting with Swami. During that period, my mother also came to stay with us in Bombay. And by then, as my sisters would have told you, by then they were also well entrenched into Swami's following and devotion, and they were very devoted followers of Swami. And my mother was very intense in her devotion, very intense. So she came to stay with us, and that during her stay with us, uh, uh, our faith also strengthened, and we started visiting Puttaparthi also. Our first visit was in 1989, and that was to Parthi, and that was my that also had a huge impact on us. It is said that Swami, when he appears in your dreams, they are real. So, I have not been as intensely spiritual or involved in prayers as my mother and my sisters. But whenever I would go out on a walk, etc., I used to say my prayers, very brief prayers. I never asked anything for myself. I would always pray for Jag Kalyan. Jag Kalyan. So once Swami appeared in my dreams, and I dreamt that I was dreaming, and Swami was in a courtyard, and he was giving darshans. So I did my pranams to him, and he beckoned me, come here. So I went to him, I took his charan, and he said, Kya mangta? So I said, Swami, Jag Kalyan mangta. So he smiled, oh, Jag Kalyan mangta. Very easy, very simple. So I was, why I used to ask for Jag Kalyan was that, there's a common thing, there's not something unusual, but many people have this question in mind that God is our father, he's our mother, he's our friend. Why is it that people are so miserable? And somehow the law of karma was unable to convince me that a mother would be so unforgiving, and if the mother was omnipotent, why couldn't she pardon her children? Why couldn't she eradicate the misery, etc.? So this is what prompted this query from my side. And I felt the world is so unhappy. Why can't God, who has created this world, we are all his creatures, why can't he set right or free people from their misery? So this is how I had the temerity to raise this question to Swami, and Swami said, it's very easy. I will tell you how Jag Kalyan can happen. So as soon as he said that, a cart full of plants appeared on the scene. And Swami asked me to hold one plant, which I held. And he said, okay, now you repeat this shlok after me. And he recited some shlok. And he said, now you say it. And I repeated that shlok after him. And he said, fine. And suddenly that plant disappeared. He held another plant, and the same process, that plant also disappeared. Another plant, and the same process, and that plant also disappeared. And Swami also antardhyan ho gaye. At that juncture, I just went for a toss and fell off from my bed. I'm dreaming. I'm still dreaming. And in my dream, I'm looking at a picture of Swami and staring at it and saying, Swami, आपने मुझे 3 प्लांट्स के बारे में बताया था, मुझे तो याद ही नहीं है, मुझे याद ही नहीं आ रहा है कौन से प्लांट्स थे वो और कौन से श्लोक थे. मुझे ऐसा लगता था कि मुझे याद रहेगा, लेकिन मुझे कुछ याद नहीं है. Then in my dream, I saw the watch clock. It was 6 a.m. And by then my mother, who used to observe the Brahm Muhurat, she would be all set for a puja, having had a bath. And I went to her room, and she was She had nicely decorated her puja with flowers and all, and she was uh, in her. She was about to sit for her prayers. So I just went and sat on the bed next to her, and I said, "कि मम्मी, मुझे बड़ा ये सपना आया है." तूने क्या सपना आया? Then I narrated the dream to her. So she said कि अच्छा, ये मैं सोचने दो मुझे. तो मैंने कहा और सब तो ठीक है, लेकिन ये प्लांट्स में कैसे भूल गया, मुझे बड़ा बुरा लग रहा है. और वो जो उन्होंने बताया था श्लोक, वो भी मुझे याद नहीं है. सो माय मदर सेज कि अच्छा देखो, मेरे पास कुछ प्लांट्स हैं बैल्कनी में, चलो मेरे ख्याल से मेरे पास हो सकते हैं. So she took me to the balcony, which was by the seaside. We were in Bombay, and I said, "मम्मी, हमें 2 प्लांट्स दिख रहे हैं." तो she said, और तीसरा और श्लोक. हमने कहा वो तो मैं भूल गया. And then after that, she said, क्या करते हो, इतनी important चीज स्वामी ने बताई, तुम भूल गए. And then my dream really broke. And I woke up and I was looking at Swami's picture in front of me. And I go to my mother. The time was 6 o'clock, and she was where I had seen her in my dream. And I said this to her. And then she said, "Okay, let me think what this means." And then I was getting vibrations. I said, नहीं, आप रहने दीजिए, मैं थोड़ा सोचता हूँ, लगता है स्वामी कुछ बोल रहे हैं. And I went to my room and started looking at that picture. And then I could hear something that Swami was telling me. He said, तुमने जग कल्याण मांगा और मैंने उसका तुम्हें उपाय भी बता दिया कि 3 प्लांट्स हैं भाई, और ये श्लोक पढ़ो. अब तुम इतना नहीं याद कर पाए, तुम जग की बात कर रहे हो. What do you know about the jug? What is jug? Is the jug this earth, this planet, or you? You are all but specks in this. Jug means the entire cosmos. There are trillions and many trillions of creatures and objects in this cosmos. So what he said was, look here, my dear fellow, you leave the jug to me. Managing the jug is my business. I have taken on this business. You manage yourself, you manage your karmas, you do your karmas, and let me run the jug as I deem proper. I think this statement was said very firmly, and that set my mind at rest. It may not seem a plausible reply to many, but at least I was satisfied with it. That's not to say that we should not involve ourselves in the welfare of the jug. We must always pray, Samasta Loka Sukhino Bhavantu. That is what Swami himself has taught us. It's a good thing to pray. But beyond the thing, where things are outside your control, you should leave it to God and Swami to take care of it. So this was an important dream that I had in the 80s, which I thought I would narrate to you. We slip into the 1990s, and as I told you, my mother, I don't know whether I mentioned, my mother used to write bhajans. She used to write poems, actually. And we had a music teacher in Bombay who composed the music for those poems that she had written. And it was really, the lyrics were very devotional, highly devotional, coming straight from the heart. And बड़ा अच्छा उन्होंने म्यूजिक कंपोज किया, और उसका एक कॉन्सर्ट हम लोग ने बिरला मातोश्री हॉल बॉम्बे में है, वहां किया. और बड़े अच्छे अच्छे उसमें भजन थे. उनमें से एक उनका बहुत ही चहेता भजन था, जन्म दिवस पर आज तिहारे तुझसे यही मनाऊं, जब जब प्रभु अवतार धरो तुम संग तुम्हारे आऊं. And she got it from where? Swami's birthday we all celebrate, but Swami once said that actually I have no birthday. I was always there. But the day you install me in your heart, treat that as your birthday, as my birthday. So basically here the devotee is saying, जन्म दिवस पर आज तिहारे तुझसे यही मनाऊं, जब जब प्रभु अवतार धरो तुम संग तिहारे आऊं. कि God, whenever you incarnate, let me also bring me also with you. It was a beautiful bhajan, and one stanza I'll just sing from you, and that is actually the essence of why we should make the best of this life. It goes like this. लख चौरासी घूम के भगवन मानव तन यह पाया. लख चौरासी घूम के भगवन मानव तन यह पाया. बड़े भाग्य जागे प्रभु मेरे, बड़े भाग्य जागे प्रभु मेरे, जो शुभ अवसर आया. शीश पे रखना हाथ सदा यह, शीश पे रखना हाथ सदा यह, जन्ना व्यर्थ गवाऊं. जब जब प्रभु अवतार धरो तुम, जब जब प्रभु अवतार धरो तुम, संग तिहारी आऊं, संग तिहारी आऊं. So basically, I think it has taken all of us several births in our soul's journey to come to a stage when we are associated with Swami, and there's a golden opportunity that should not be lost, and we should, under his guidance, try to move ahead towards our self-realization. Incidentally, during the first interview, that's first and last interview that Swami gave me, that was many years later. My mother was not alive at that point of time, but we talked about my mother, and I said that Swami, जब भी आप अवतार लेंगे आप मुझे अपने साथ लाइएगा. Taking a cue from my mother, and he said, हाँ अवतार लेता, he said, and of course he will be coming again. I think the other highlight of the 1990s was Swami's visit to Delhi to my sister's house. That was on 13th of March 1999. And that was a very memorable event. You cannot imagine how exhilarated all of us felt to see Swami moving amongst us, eating his food, and being taken by my mother, literally holding his hands into her puja. And I just wanted to show you that clip, if you'll permit me to. Just 1 minute.
Thank you.
So that's my mother, and I'll take you to a point where that's my brother-in-law, Ushai's husband. Now look what's going to happen now. stop it now. So this scene is really etched in my memory, and I'm sorry I'm bringing my mother again and again in the picture, because for me, she and Swami are inseparable. Swami is my mother, and my mother is Swami for me. That is how I see it, and this reminds me of Aranyakand in Ramayana, when Ram meets Shabri. Probably it could have been a similar kind of situation. Anyway, so from this was in 1999, and moving forward, as far as you know, another very important thing happened in 1991 when I was touring Europe. I was on an official tour, and uh, I had traveled from Switzerland to France. Why I'm narrating this incident is that, you know, it's only reinforcing the thing that you should not only have uh, faith in Swami, you should also have confidence in him. Just as we have confidence in a doctor, besides faith, we should also have confidence. Faith and confidence are not the same thing. You may have faith, but you may not have confidence. But for surrender, you have to have faith and you have to have confidence. So we landed in Paris, and I went in the Air France coach from the airport to a hotel. And as I was checking in, I found that the pouch which contained my passport, currency note, the passport had a visa for UK where I was to travel, and some traveler's checks. That was not there. I searched for it everywhere. I couldn't find it. Then I was directed to the concierge, and I remembered that there was a branch of Bank of India in Paris. So I got their number in the telephone directory. I had a few French franc coins in my pocket, and I made a call. And I was then by then a senior officer in Reserve Bank. I introduced myself to the branch manager, told him what had happened, and he immediately reassured me that he will do something about it and sent an officer to meet me at the hotel. And I was just telling Swami, Swami, why have you done this to me in France? I don't know. I'm a total alien to this place. I don't even understand the language. And now what will I do? I don't have money. I don't have my passport. I don't have my ticket. So anyway, I started meeting in the lobby, and the gentleman from the bank turned up, and he was very reassuring, you know. I'm not sure if today this were to happen, the same treatment would be meted out to anyone, but it happened. Maybe Swami had designed it that way. So he came and he reassured me that he would take me to the embassy for a duplicate passport. He would take me to the Air India office for a duplicate ticket. But as far as money is concerned, etc., that is lost. It's lost. The pouch also had a vibhuti packet in it. So he says, why don't you do one thing? You come with me to my house and then have lunch, and then we will go and organize all this. So I said, what we'll do is we will keep my bags in your house, but you kindly take me to the airport, and I would need to borrow some money from you because I don't have any money for the taxi. So we went to his house, and we left the bags there. But he was dissuading me. He said, "Hey, this is Paris, and the airport is notorious for all these things. These thefts happen. Probably the money has been stolen from somewhere, so you're not likely to retrieve it. And the De Gaulle airport is so complex, you won't even know from where you had exited unless you enter from the right gate. You will not be able to talk to the right persons." I said, no, let's go. So we started, and all along I was saying Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram. And suddenly I saw one building, and I said, okay, this is where I came out from. There was so many buildings, you know, that in that airport complex, but I could identify the building from where I came. And we went there, and as soon as we entered, There was a security desk right in front, and there was a lady there. Monsieur, is this yours? She was holding out my pouch, and she had seen my passport, and she matched my face with the passport. And would you believe it? I could get everything back. I mean, nothing was stolen from there. So that is how Swami comes to your rescue when you pray to him with a lot of conviction and sincerity. And it was a incident that is etched in my mind, and I thank God. And that evening I sang a lot of bhajans, and I phoned Air India. I said, look, I was to stay here for 2-3 days, but I want to go to London tomorrow itself. And so I went. So that was this incident. I'll come to another event that happened in 2009 in Puttaparthi. That was on August 28th and 29th, when the Satyasai Institute of Higher Learning organized a conference on ethics in the world of finance. And at that conference, they invited the then governor of Reserve Bank of India, plus a former governor of Reserve Bank of India, Dr. Y.V. Reddy. At that time, the governor was Dr. Subbarao. So both of them, and a lot of bank chairmen from foreign banks, private banks, public sector banks, etc. And I represented the Reserve Bank as their delegate at that conference. That conference was actually, I should say, the realization of a dream that I always had, a yearning to meet Swami face to face. And there was a function in the evening where Swami was in the center, and there were chairs kept on either side for the delegates. There were about 20 of us, I think. 10 chairs on this side, 10 chairs on that side. And there were 3-4 speakers who were designated to speak on the occasion. So we were called one by one to the dais that was in Puranchand Hall. And we had to go and present a rosebud to Swami. So my turn also came and I gave him. And then the proceedings started, and speaker after speaker, there were 2-3 speakers who delivered their speeches. And I was not actually expecting anything from my side. But then the registrar of the university was sent by Swami, and he said, Swami is saying, would you like to speak? So I said, but look, I have not prepared anything. The others were told that they had to speak. So then he said, okay, then I will tell Swami that that you will not speak. I said, no, please don't do that. If Swami is saying, if he's giving me an opportunity of speaking, then I'll go and speak. Now this was Puranchand Hall, and there was an audience of almost 10,000 people there. So I was actually, and Swami's presence, so I was actually quite petrified. So I went to him and I said, Swami, only you have to speak through me. And I want to play this clip for you. So, because I believe that whatever I spoke there was not spoken by me as much as it was spoken by Swami through me.
Bhagwan Sati Sai Baba, my humble pranams at your lotus feet. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and my dear brothers and sisters of the Sai family, my humble Sai pranams to you. As I sit here, I can only recount the teachings of Swami that one tries to imbibe. Swami says, my life is my message. And you can see that happening. How well this conference has been organized. and how well everything has been put together in such a systematic, methodical manner. How one has to treat one's guests, that is a lesson that one gets when you visit such a conference. Today happens to be the best day of my life. It's a very emotional moment for me. And thanks to you, Swami, for giving me this opportunity. I represent the Reserve Bank of India, which is the country's regulator of the financial system. And we also try to bring about monetary and financial stability in this country. The Reserve Bank has prescribed a set of comprehensive regulations, which, if followed in letter and spirit, will surely ensure financial stability and will surely prevent the kind of crisis, the devastating crisis that the world has seen. As Mr. Kamath rightly mentioned, India is one of those countries where the financial system has stayed stable and strong in spite of the crisis which ravaged the rest of the world. It speaks well of our regulatory system. It also speaks well of the Indian character that we have been able to avert a catastrophe that swept the world. Today we have had very interesting deliberations, technical discussions on the subject. My governor was here in the morning and he gave a very eloquent address which was followed by the former governor, Dr. Y. Venugopal Reddy, who also shed pearls of wisdom on the subject of discussion. But eventually, values, ethics, they all flow from the heart.
But since it was the best day of my life, I had to share it with you. So this was on 28th of August, but I think the best was yet to come, because on 29th morning we were to depart, and I was sitting in the veranda and the bhajans were almost about to get over, and everyone thought that Swami would not be coming for darshans that day. But just then Swami came into the hall, and he came to the dais, and I was the first stop, and he said, "How many?" So I told him my wife was there, my daughter, and her daughter, my granddaughter, and Swami called all of us, and that is when we had our first interview with Swami. But we were so overwhelmed that we really didn't know what to say. But the kind of affection that he bestowed on us on that day, he was, throughout the 20 minutes we were with him, he was just ruffling my hair, thumping me on my shoulder, and caressing my hands. I mean, I felt very happy. It was almost as if my mother had returned. And I did tell Swami that, Swami, I miss my mother very much. So he said, yes, I know her. Very good mother, very good mother. So these are some of the experiences that I thought I would share with you. I am afraid I don't have as much to share as many other speakers, but these experiences are enough for me and sufficient to sustain my faith in Swami and make me continue to tread the path I'm on. I believe I have some lessons still to learn in this birth, and one has to try to get onto the Param Bhakti mark somehow, which is not easy, but still it's worth an effort, and I'm trying to follow that path as much as possible. I didn't even know what Param Bhakti means and I used to pray for Swami, please tell me what is Param Bhakti, because someone told me that this is a lesson that you have to complete. So I don't know what inspired me. Swami must have inspired me to pick up the Ramayana. On the Shera day, last year, I started reading the Ramayana, the Ramcharitmanas, written by Swami Gosai Tulsidas. And I completed it in about 3-4 months. But that's all about bhakti only and param bhakti. So probably they are very difficult lessons to imbibe, but that is the path that one has to tread. So I think I will stop here. Uh, there have been so many experiences and dreams, but one can go on and on. But these are the highlights of some of the experiences that I had, which I thought I would share with this enlightened audience. So with this, I'll end and close. Thank you very much.